Hello, everyone here within the Native American Church family, friends, and relatives. We just want to say good day to you here in Washington, D.C., Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. The past 2 days been very awesome days filled of good information, good advocating efforts here in D.C. on behalf of the American Indian Religious Freedom Summit. You know, we kind of celebrating the 30 years of the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. And I want to thank everyone that took that time, took that initiative to make your travels over here in Washington, D.C. You know, it was a good turnout. It was, I want to thank all the tribal government that made their way over. Our first day, you know, started out there in the Kennedy caucus room. You know, I'm going to thank all the different representatives that came by, you know, and also not only if they were there physically, they got to see all of the videos. They got to hear what we had to say, what we had to do within that room there. It was a very historical moment. You know, a lot of things took place in there from the past, the present, and then into the future. So we was very fortunate to be in that room on day one here, Monday, November 18th. You know, it was a very productive day. You know, with that being said, you know, we had a congressional briefing. You know, we had some viewpoints from the Native American Church of North America. You know, and in the midst of that, you know, was kind of examining, you know, the U.S. Department of Interior Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative, you know, the investigation, the report, volume 1 and 2, you know, recommendations in there that interface with the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. So in there, you know, we just wanted to make mention on our cultural and our traditional side, you know, what they left, you know, out. And then we're trying to make a good headway in a way that we live this in our everyday walk of life, you know, from the morning we get up until the evening as we go to bed. You know, it's instilled in all of us, you know, as Native American Church family, relatives, you know. So we're up here, you know, celebrating this law, and then same time we're advocating as well. You know, we had a good panel on day number 2 of a lot of spiritual leaders, ceremonial practitioners, you know, that and healers that they got to hear, you know, on the ceremonial mindset, on the ceremonial lens, you know, how much this good medicine means to us, this holy medicine, holy sacrament. Not only the purity, but all other plant, all other medicines, you know, that we have here in all our ceremonies. And then with that, sacred sites, you know, all the traditional foods, you know, all the plant medicines of this land in language, you know. So all these good things we try to intertwine and trying our best to shine light on it some more here on behalf of the American Indian Religious Freedom Act, you know, the summit here. So I want to thank all the panelists that was there, Mr. Dr. Avery Denny, you know, Ernest Harry Begay, you know, Dr. Wilson Aranis Jr., and then from the Ho-Chunk Nation, Mr. Travis Cloud. You know, they all had some good testimonies. They all had some good examples how much our way of life means to each and every one of us. So it was really nice here. We had we begun with a prayer song, kind of set the tone all throughout the day, and that good spirit was within that building throughout the day. And it was really productive, a good excitement, good energy, good vibes that was there. And then later on that day, you know, we were honoring different ones, you know, that were very instrumental in that as well. You know, we had a Mr. David Clark. You know, he was a former ABNDN, you know, president. And then Mr. Dash, you know, a former NACNA, you know, president. And then along the way, you know, Dr. Jerry Patchen, you know, we wanted to kind of honor him up. You know, he was very humbled. You know, he mentioned that this was the first time that anyone, you know, done this for him. And he was tears of joy and happiness, you know, that someone could do that for him. So on behalf of all the Native American church family and his wife, you know, we honored them. You know, we said some encouragement to him, made a praise song for all his efforts for our way of life. You know, I thought that was really nice, you know, that we could do that. And then our keynote speaker was Susan Harjo. You know, we all know she was kind of the prime author within this American Indian Religious Freedom Act back in '78. So she had a good talk. She had kind of good reminders. It was very nice and real fitting for this celebration of this amendment of 1994. And basically it was realizing the promise of the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. You know, then along the way we had tribal government. I want to thank them very much that was there. We also had some executive directors. We also have some chief executives, you know, different ones of Indian affairs and federal policy directors, you know, Julia Wakeford, you know, different ones that was part of this Capitol Hill. You know, they work here, and past 3-4 years, they've been hearing what we have to say, listening to what we have to say, you know, kind of reminding them of some of these laws that we're governed by as Native American church ceremonial practitioners. And then along the way, we had our tribal government, you know, to come in, and they shared their concerns as well. And it was really nice to know that some of them are Native American church members that are themselves. So I'm going to thank them, you know, a whole lot, you know, representing the Dene Nation and also the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes of Oklahoma. You know, everyone, we try to touch base on all these leadership, from spiritual leaders to tribal leaders to government officials. You know, so it was a really a good summit that we had. And then here today, Wednesday, we are going to different representatives, senators, state offices. You know, we're advocating some more on some of the challenges that we have. You know, so we have our officers, our delegates. I'm going to thank them for coming out. So they're on Capitol Hill, boots on the ground again, making these tracks to the Congress halls, you know, and just sharing our concerns that we have as Native American Church of North America, and then all the other independent chapters that are not affiliated. You know, so I'm going to thank everyone here. I want to thank Mr. Jones here for being our legal representative. You know, doing a really good, outstanding job of his legal lens. You know, kind of how to fine-tune things. And then same time, our legislative chair, Mr. Ryan Wilson. You know, so I'm going to thank him very much for his good expertise and the policy encouragement and different avenues. And so when I have Mr. Wilson, Mr. Jones, you know, teaming up together and then helping the whole organization, it makes it really nice. It makes us all feel confident, feel strong, and thankful that we can have someone like these two gentlemen. And then along with everyone's prayers I've been saying since the day we came up, we started off with a prayer at my brother Anthony Manasseh's home place on behalf of my one of my nephews, a birthday celebration, a little RJ. So along the way, had that good spirit, had that good feeling coming over here, you know, confident of what was going to be said, what was going to be done. So I'm really thankful for everyone's prayers and getting a lot of feedback. But nevertheless, you know, when something good is happening, when something good is going to happen, we always know that things try to come around, try to hinder, you know, something good's gonna, but nevertheless, we got to overlook that, and we got to keep going forward to good, nice, positive things. You know, so I'm really glad and happy to be here with Mr. Jones and my wife, Rebecca, and also my awesome uncle, Wilson. He's walking around here, enjoying himself here. Today is his birthday. I want to wish him a good, happy birthday. You know, so I could go on and on here, but most of all, I'm going to thank everyone, you know, for supporting of our efforts here on Capitol Hill, where we're trying our best. Even though the results, however you vote it, we just got to accept it and move on. And time to kind of roll our sleeves up and get more enthused and more inspired to do good things some more. So I'm going to thank everyone, you know, that attended the summit here. So maybe it could be an annual thing here, but this is probably our 4th one we've been having. We've been having them in different areas, you know, one in New Mexico, you know, different areas. So we're trying to let everyone know what's happening, what's going on, you know, in a good, humble way, you know. So I just want to say about that much. Thank you all. May you have a good Thanksgiving, a good, happy holiday to each and every one. Ho.
Yate. Relatives in Indian country in all 4 directions. I'm going to say Yate to all of you here today. We are here in Washington, D.C. For the past several days. And we've come here for the Native American Church of North America, American Indian Religious Freedom Act Summit. We started Monday, and just like my brother said, he went through the agenda and different things that we did and talked about throughout the course of the last several days. There are several things I wanted to share with you, relatives out there, that we talked about and then we discussed not only on the panels but outside of the meetings, and then with other senators and congressmen and women that were within our agenda here the last several days. One of the main things that we talked about here this week was the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. If some of you don't know, the actual American Indian Religious Freedom Act was passed in 1978. And so that was really to recognize and to establish by law the inherent civil rights that we have to pray, sing, and conduct our ceremonies, and then to protect our sacred sites. Our inherent rights is foremost embedded into the law. Inherent means that something that God gave us, something that is already within us. It wasn't created by man or anything like that. So we have inherent rights. That's what the 78 law established, that they recognize that. And those inherent rights to pray, sing, conduct our ceremonies, protect our sacred sites, and even protects our Indian culture and protocols. And so that was the law that was passed in 1978. So we took that law back out and set it here, and then through that had a good, wonderful discussion here the last couple of days upon it. It was not until later, when the incident happened in Oregon concerning the usage of peyote, and that process began under the Smith versus Oregon employment case that was decided by the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is just right over here. That's where the Supreme Court decided that the peyote was not protected under the First Amendment of freedom of religion. And so that was something that was significant enough to where a lot of our leaders, they came together along with some of the instrumental senators and congressmen and women, and even the executive branch under the administration of Bill Clinton. So that was the 1994 amendment. They made the amendment to the American Indian Religious Freedom Act of 1978. So the 1994 amendment basically established that the federal government was not going to prohibit, was not going to prosecute, it was not going to do anything for the usage of peyote. But it established some parameters within the law. And in the amendment simply says that you have to be a member of the federally recognized tribe in either to possess peyote, in either to ingest peyote, and then in either to transport peyote, but only for a bona fide ceremonial purpose. Remember that, only for a bona fide ceremonial purpose. So there's two major things from the 1994 amendments. You have to be a member of a federally recognized tribe to possess it, ingest it, and transport it, but only for a bona fide ceremonial purpose. So that's what the 1994 amendments simply did. And so we put those back on the table and we examined it and we talked about it, mainly to educate ourselves and each other and to educate the members of Congress and the executive branch here in Washington, D.C. So that was their main thing the last couple of days. In addition to that, we also talked about how the 1994 amendment does not address the medicine survivability today. We all know that it only grows in South Texas and it only grows in 4 counties. And within those 4 counties that it grows, the land ownership are private ownership. It doesn't grow on state lands. It does not grow on federal lands. It only grows on private lands. And so our accessibility to it is very limited. And then at the same time, the way that the private landowners are utilizing the land, a lot of the lands that this peyote grows on are being cultivated for natural gas pipeline, for wind generators, for all sorts of development. And so the peyote, where it grows, the land base is beginning to shrink as well. So the availability of this peyote is beginning to shrink as well. And so that's the conservation of peyote. The conservation of our sacred medicine is something that we're trying to advocate for as well. To have the federal government recognize that, and then for the federal government to initiate certain laws, maybe regulations, and maybe even funding to ensure that this peyote, where it naturally grows, it's in its original habitat, that it would be preserved and it would be protected, where we're always going to have this peyote. It seems like when we say that the lands are diminishing because of this cultivation that's taking place and this development, it's shrinking the land base where the peyote is growing. And so in a lot of ways, people misconstrue that to say that the peyote are going down, we're not going to have enough peyote sometimes. That may be true, but it's not in anytime immediate. But the fact remains that we're trying to preserve it not only for today, next week, next year, but 50, 100 years down the road over here. That's the whole intent, not just today, but 50, 100 years down the road. So if we can preserve these land bases where the peyote grows, then at least we can assure that those medicines can continue to grow on these lands. So that's what the advocacy here in Washington is for. So when we say advocacy, it might take a statute, it might take a regulation, it might take also some funding in either to achieve what we're doing. So a lot of times people also misconstrue our efforts to say that, oh, they're trying to amend the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. It has nothing to do with amending American Indian Religious Freedom Act. In all actuality, we're trying to say that it already established it. It's already there. All we're doing is trying to ensure that the peyote survives, the peyote land base survives. So that's our advocacy. The other advocacy that we're doing here is the fact that we have the enforcement of it. So the federal law is already there. Every time the United States government has a federal law, it establishes a federal law. There's always an enforcement mechanism today. So today, we have to enforce that, where it says that you have to be a member of a federally recognized tribe to possess, transport, and ingest peyote. That's what federal law says. And you can only use it in a bona fide ceremonial manner. That's the only way that you can use it. So today, what we have is we have an influx of third parties that are trying to use that as a psychedelic medicine. Now, mind you, the majority of these initiatives are being done by non-members of federally recognized tribes. And they're not being used for bona fide ceremonial purposes. That's very important. So when you have pharmaceuticals, when you have other initiatives that are trying to take mescaline out of there and to begin to produce that for whatever purposes they want to do it, mainly to make money, then that violates the federal law. So then now the federal government has to come in and enforce the law that it created. So that's one of the advocacies that we're doing here as well. My relatives. So those are very simple, but they become complex, but at the same time, they're necessary things to protect and preserve our sacred medicine. The other part to this initiative here this past week has been the fact that we're making contacts, we're making communication, establishing communication lines with the new administration that's coming in. We know that we're going to have a new president that's going to be inaugurated just right behind this building here in January. We're going to have an all-Republican House of Representatives. The majority of the United States Senate is going to be Republicans. So we have all of these changes that are taking place per the political party system that this government operates on. However, as Native people, as Indian nations, we don't really necessarily see that the same way that the mainstream America sees it. We're colorblind to all of this. It's not red or it's not blue. A lot of times when we see red and blue, that's sacred to us in our ceremonial peyote ceremonies. But in this town, it's different. But that doesn't mean that as Indian tribes, we're going to buy into that as well. So we're beginning to work with the Republicans and say, hey, we have this issue here. It's neither a Democratic issue, it's neither a Republican issue, but it is an issue of ours. It's a concern of ours, just like the two things that I elaborated upon here. So we have to work with whoever is here. We have to work with there. And it may also turn out that maybe the Republicans treat us a lot better than how the Democrats did also. And that's usually how it works. And so we have to take advantage of these initiatives so that we have the best interests of our protection and preservation of our peyote in place. We have to keep that as its best interest here when we talk to the leadership here in Washington, D.C. So those are a few things that we've been working on and doing so. And I believe that the summit was really good also. The summit enabled us, and because it's been an issue that we've been trying to promote as well. It is no longer just an issue of peyote. It's no longer just a Native American church matter anymore. It has turned into a concern, a matter that affects all of our Native ceremonies. It affects all of our sacred sites. It affects all medicines, whether it's peyote, whether it's zatnich, whether it's ketlo, other medicines that other tribal nations use to restore harmony, to give holistic healing. Those medicines, everything, and then our sacred sites as well. In addition to that, our Indian protocols and our cultural identity and cultural ways that we all have. And finally, it deals with our language. I always say, if we don't have our native language, we cannot perform, we cannot do our sacred ceremonies because it's language based. And so these are some issues that this Hinadis peyote has opened up to us. When we were just talking about peyote, now it's opened up to other things as well. And so when you get back to the American Indian Religious Freedom Act, that was the original intent in 1978. And so now we're coming back full circle because peyote opened that to us, opened that for us to talk about and to begin to address. So it's not only a peyote issue anymore. We're dealing with ceremonies, we're dealing with sacred sites, we're dealing with protocols, traditional protocols and cultural teachings, and then our language as well. So those are the issues that we're dealing with here, and we're having a conversation with Congress and then the executive branch as well. One is to educate, and one is to make sure that those are all addressed in the next coming administration that's coming. And again, the American Indian Religious Freedom Act serving as the basis document to do all of these things. And so those are some of the things that we covered here this past week, my relatives. And I wanted to just summarize some of those things for you today. In addition to what my brother Pancho has expressed, and I want to thank all of the participants, the American Indian trauma that we addressed and talked about Monday concerning the trauma from boarding schools, how we were traumatized by that, and it's generational trauma. And so the recommendations in there in the report talks about language, it talks about cultural identity, it talks about holistic healing, it talks about all of these things. The same thing that our medicines, our ceremonies are comprised of. And so we got a chance to talk about that and put it side by side and make that as a classic example of what we're dealing with as Indian nations today. And then on Tuesday, we brought in the holistic healers, and we talked about how holistic healing, whether it's counseling or whether it's ceremonial, physical, mental disabilities, and all of these type of sicknesses that are there, how holistic healing serves as a healer, as a problem resolver. Those kind of discussions, how that is actually happening at our homes, back at the tribal nations level. So we brought that in. At the same time, we also brought in the different components of the advocacies, whether it's from education, whether it's from environmentalism, whether it's from energy, these kind of things that we brought them together, but that we found a common strand, which is the protection and preservation of our ceremonies, of our sacred sites, of our ceremonies and medicines like that. And then finally, we brought in the role of tribal government. We wanted to show that tribal government is a very integral player, component of all of this. Tribal government has to be involved. Tribal governments have to take positions on some of these at this level because it is very important. A lot of times the question is, what does your tribal government say? What is their position? So we have over 60 tribes that have passed resolutions to say that we need to protect and preserve peyote. We are against decriminalization. We are against the legalization of mescaline. Those are resolutions from all of these tribal governments that have passed that. And we thank them for it again, for passing those resolutions and making that stand to say that this is not for everybody. This is for only us Indian nations. Do not mess with our ceremonies. Don't mess with our medicines. And so we wanted to show that. So we brought the panel together, and it was really a good discussion of Navajo Nation Council delegates, and then the chief and chairman governor of the Cheyenne Arapaho tribe as well, who were having a good discussion based upon their practice and their belief system in this peyote as well. And so they were actual members of the Native American Church talking about their advocacy for this peyote. And so we brought all of these different components and made this summit really fruitful. It really invigorated the mind and thoughts and everything else. And today we're advocating to individual members of Congress all day today. And this evening we're going to bundle all that up. And then the teepee already went up, and bundle all that up, and with our prayers, with our songs, and then we're going to roll that tobacco, put it down, and make that prayer like that. And so we're excited about that, and we're excited about the opportunity and the honor and the privilege to talk on behalf of this sacred medicine. The honor and the privilege to talk on behalf of our ceremonies, our one-day ceremonies, our sun dances, all of these things. We are very honored and privileged to talk on behalf of all that. But the elders as well, what the knowledge that they have today, and then they're passing it on to the younger generations. We're very excited to be part of that process. So I wanted to share that with you today, relatives. And God bless all of you. Have a good Thanksgiving. Be safe, and God bless you all.